Let's start Monday off strong with a nice juicy topic. Something that no one really wants to talk about because it's taboo and uncomfortable and kind of controversial sometimes. The in-law relationship. Why is it so challenging to live in a joint family system? Sometimes, not always. Most of the time, though. Why is it hard to have these relationships with other females that end up becoming quite toxic and unhealthy sometimes? Well, here's the psychology aspect to all of this. According to research, whenever there's struggles in a family system that hasn't been dealt with, meaning unhealed traumas, past wounds and insecurities, maladaptive relationship attachment styles between family members, when you go ahead and introduce a new energy into that dynamic, a dynamic that might already have a little bit of waves going on, it's gonna set things off in a really big way. Now, a fresh pair of eyes is always going to be able to pick out and notice problematic aspects within a family system, and then maybe these might be emphasized to their partner. But of course, men, generally speaking, tend to be a little bit more avoidant. That means even if they know there's some unhealthy things going on within their family, they're more likely to repress or ignore them and just kind of keep going with emotions, not to make any waves or issues. But when a female's ready to start her real life, so to speak, because in South Asian culture, your life doesn't really start until you get married, then she's not going to want to take this more passive approach. If she's seeing some problems, she's going to point them out. So this is variable number one. The truth speaker, the one making noise, often gets villainized and pushed out of the family system as being a troublemaker. Point number two is something I've chatted about before, the idea of triangulation. Triangulation is a phenomenon that happens in relationships when two parties get closer with their mutual disinterest or dislike towards a third party. Now, what unites people more than a common enemy? Pretty much nothing. So when you have someone coming in that's now taking away perhaps their son's attention and likeliness to show up and help and provide and support and be that yes man and people pleaser, then yes, it's going to be easy to dislike that person. Another variable that's relevant to triangulation is that if two family members are having struggles in their relationship, maybe they have some maladaptive tendencies, some toxic behaviors, this is going to be easier to sweep under the rug now that they have somewhere to channel and project all of that energy. So this brings us to our next term, the idea of being a scapegoat. So often the daughter-in-law, sister-in-law gets turned into the scapegoat, which is let's blame all the problems in the family on this one person. It's easier to blame someone who's coming in with a different set of values, morals, ethics, tendencies, habits, behaviors than it is to become self-reflective. Sometimes self-reflection involves vulnerability, and vulnerability is not the forte in Punjabi culture. It's quite avoided because we haven't had the luxury to develop that over the generations. Everything has been very survival focused. So that emotional upbringing and intelligence and development hasn't really been there for the most part. Now, the next relevant term to think about is the idea of scarcity. So scarcity is when we become focused on things running out or not having enough of something, and that makes us act maybe not with a lot of maturity, intellect, tact, or patience. We might then start feeling like this new person is taking away resources, whether that's time, money, energy, love, attention, whatever it might be, a feeling of scarcity that it's fleeting and going away from us because of this new person being introduced. Now, why scarcity there to begin with? Because a lot of our parents have had financial struggles growing up, and that never really leaves us. Even if their financial stature has now improved, we still always have that feeling of unmet needs or potentially not having enough resources to go around. So adding another person to the family unit can sometimes trigger those old feelings of scarcity. Also, let's say a lot of times in family systems, brothers are parentified and they become the guardian figures. So siblings might really resent their partner for coming in because, again, that scarcity feeling comes up and they feel like they're missing out on attention, love, and safety because this new person is another party to share and divide the family resources with, so to speak. The last term we're going to talk about today, of course, this is not an exhaustive list. There's so many layers and different and different variations of what can create a problematic family dynamic when it comes to in-law relationships. But the last term, again, something I've mentioned before, is the idea of enmeshment or codependencies. If the attachment styles between and mom, son and father, or son and sibling, or that didn't make sense, and the siblings is anxious attachment, meaning they feel like they need to cling on to the person or they're going to go away, or avoidant attachment, there's a lot of conflict, bickering, fighting because they like to keep people at arm's length but still want to have them in their life, then this again is going to trickle on to the new partner, the daughter-in-law, the sister-in-law, because there's situations going on in the family system that pre-existed her entering into the family. But of course it's easier to kind of pass the torch and just kind of like project and displace the negative energy rather than take accountability and heal the attachment wounds. Also, another pattern that we see in terms of enmeshment is sometimes the mom can be hyper attached to the son, and most of her happiness comes through her relationship with her son. So then it's an uncomfortable transitional period to have her son's attention divided and shared with his new partner. Yeah, so those are just some variables. What are your thoughts? Do you think I missed any ideas? Of course, this is not I'm not trying to generalize or say that all family systems are like this. Surely there are examples of a lot of healthy family units where joint family living can be positive and a nice experience. I'm just talking about what we see usually talked about on social media in terms of some of the unhealthy patterns that can sometimes happen. See you next time.